All right, guys, so this is our first topic of the year. We are in our Ready workbook and we are on page 5, or page 3 rather. So we are on page 3. And also feel free when we're doing these notes to use pen, or if you want to use a highlighter as well, that's completely up to you. So we are going to start talking about what are called transformations. Specifically, we're going to focus on rigid transformations. And anything I'm writing down in blue is something you're going to want to write down in your workbook. So a rigid transformation is when the size and the shape of an object stays the same. And we're going to talk about 3 different ways that we can transform an object. So the first type is when you slide the object. So they took A and just slid it to the right to get B. This is called a translation. So this is our first type of transformation. Another way that we can transform something is by reflecting it or flipping it over a line of reflection. So this second type of transformation is called a reflection. And then the third type is if we spin something or turn something around a point, then we are going to call that one a rotation. So those are our 3 types of transformations that we'll be looking at in this video. We are going to skip page 4 and move right to page 5. So excuse me while I adjust this quickly so we can look at it. Okay, so on page 5, we're starting with this polygon, and we're going to translate it over here to form shape B. We need to fill in the missing sides to complete the figure, so we want to make sure that this figure slides straight over, and as best we can, the shape should stay the exact same size. It's not going to be perfect. Mine's not perfect, but it's about the same side length on each side. So a movement that slides is called a translation. What's the same about the figures and what's different? So the same is the side lengths. So none of the side lengths changed. And what's also the same are the angles. None of those corners changed their size. The difference here, is the location. B ended up in a different location than A. This next one is a reflection. And so see the line of reflection, we are reflecting A over that line to get C. And so we want to keep this side length to be its mirror image over here. And then this side length should also be the mirror image so that these 2 shapes are exactly the same. They're just a mirror image of each other. This, by the way, is called a horizontal reflection. We are going to be doing reflections over the x-axis when we do a horizontal reflection. So I just kind of want you to know that because we'll be starting that later this week. So what stayed the same? Well, it's going to feel a little redundant, but the side lengths and the angles stayed exactly the same. What is different now is the location. But also notice here, like this pointy corner stayed pointy up top. The pointy corner here for A ended up flipping and facing downwards. It wasn't on top anymore. So we say that the orientation is the direction something faces. Sometimes you hear it with like directions. So like the orientation here is this corner is pointing north. Now here, this corner is pointing south. And so the orientation is different. All right, let's adjust again onto the next page. So page 6. Let's stay full screen. All right, there we go. Perfect. Sorry if that made you dizzy. All right, so here we're going to then rotate. So this shape is being spun this way. This can sometimes be the trickiest one. But so this side spun and is now here. This bottom side spun and is now here. So this side needs to spin to here. And this top side is going to spin here. So not perfect, but we can still tell it's the same shape. So again, what stayed the same? Sides and angles stayed the same. What's different? Obviously, it's in a new location, but just like the reflection, the orientation also changed for this shape. So a transformation describes a change in location, orientation, or size of a figure. With translations, reflections, and rotations, they belong to a subcategory called rigid transformations. Why do we think they're called rigid? Well, they're called rigid because the sides and the angles of the shape never change. So when something's rigid, like you can't move it. So the sides and the angles don't change. So how is a rotation like a reflection? Well, the rotation reflections were the ones where the orientation of the shape changed. So that's how they're the same. How is it different? One is a spin or a turn. The other is a flip. So the way that the shape changes its orientation is different. All right, so page 7 you are going to do on your own, as well as page 8. And so I'm going to actually pause this video and start another video for instruction on page 9. So why don't you right now pause the video as well and try pages 7 and 8.